Hello, Beth. Happy Thursday.
Hey, Adam. You're looking a little pale, but hopefully still as ever.
It is Halloween, October 31st here. I'm in New York City. There's like some weird lighting on me, but I did pop finally a Zoom background so you can't see all the extra noise behind me.
Awesome.
Well, I'm excited for our design challenge. I believe it's number 9 today. And we're going to be talking about budget planning, which is, of course, near and dear to a lot of our customers' hearts at this time of the year. When
Most
we think
exciting topic ever.
Of course. Well, it's kind of the dream season, right? When you're thinking about what do we want? What do we want? What can we afford? So we've done quite a few different budget planning processes with customers and clients in the past. One of the things that we think works really well is to do some pre-work. So give folks an opportunity to, on their own time, brainstorm kind of a list of initial ideas, whatever that they might be, things, projects that they have in mind, regardless of how much they cost. Then when we get together, we review all of those and we go through 2 rounds of evaluation. The first one is very preference based, like this stuff sucks or this stuff's great. Like let's at least get to the top of the list. Then we wash them through some level of what's the expense from an impact perspective, and then is it easy for us to do from a time and resource perspective? And then at the very end, we put those into sort of buckets of what we call t-shirt sizes. If you're familiar with that, it's sort of saying, this thing is super expensive. We've never done it before, or this actually sort of fits in line with our budget. Are you good to go with this kind of run a show?
Awesome. Looks good. One quick question. What about the kind of
Yeah.
those given initiatives, things that you have to do? Is that something that you just table and focus on what else, or does that come in here as well?
Yeah, it would definitely come in here as well. You might see those show up as sort of small on the t-shirt size, meaning they sort of fit in with the line of budget. But generally, this is for like incremental spend that we're going to be looking at, as well as the stuff that's been tucked in the years in the past. But great
Got it.
question. Yeah.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
So for those who haven't seen our pre-work on the platform, essentially users log in on their phone or on their computer a lot of times, and they're kind of given us a set of asynchronous activities. So this is telling you what his session is going to be about. The first one is asking you to input any initiative, any dreams that you have that need money from the business part of it. And so, Beth, I put launch a customer success program as an idea. We would go ahead and hit enter on that, and we would obviously get to the session. We would say, thank you for your inputs. And then the big reveal happens at the session itself. So once we get there, everybody, of course, scans in, and then we sort of start off the session, and we have 20 different inputs. And you can see as a facilitator, it's kind of unwieldy. You're looking at a lot of these things. I can spotlight the one customer success program, the entry that you put in. But one new feature is this ability to cluster information together. And so this uses a little bit of AI to put things into categories. So you can see only one person had something around project management. There was only one thing around upgrading servers. So while those are interesting, it seems like the bulk of our projects or initiatives were around growth, at least for this business in this case, as well as kind of on the employee experience and digital transformation. So this is an option to kind of go from this long list. If you just want to be able to highlight specific categories at a time, it just kind of slows down the pace. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's helpful because, when you get lots of ideas, I think we all naturally start categorizing them and looking for affinity groups of where do these things fall and see if you can start to
Sure.
themes. And so that calls that out really well. And then when you start to do that preference based, are you going to try to pull the theme forward, or are you going to pull all the items forward?
It's up to you. In this particular case, I took all the items forward. You could just pull the themes, especially if you had like 100 items and you got bucketed down to 10 themes. You might say, okay, let's just prioritize based on themes today instead of all the items. So for our purposes, I took us all to a dot vote. And what you'll see is nothing on the list that doesn't have a vote. Those things are all on the bottom, meaning that they weren't that important to the group. We had about 5 folks in the room here, so it was a fairly large propensity at the top. We had pretty good alignment. But this is just kind of the popularity vote, as you've called it in the past, the preference-based voting. So then what we wanted to do is take anything that had a vote, as well as some stuff that some people really felt passionate about, but for whatever reason that didn't get a vote. And we moved that into a new type of activity. It's called categorize items. And essentially this allows individuals to place those items that they had preference for into a grid that has a high impact to a high feasibility. And so on your individual phones or devices, you'll go through and you'll select each one of these quadrants. It's quite fun, actually, when you make those selections. You just sort of pick in the top right. And when you're done with all of that, you're going to have all of these things sort of not categorized because you're going to have to make a choice. where cases like this, where things were 100%, the facilitator would move everything into those areas. And so here you can see that most of us were aligned as to where these things should be. We saw expanding customer support hours as kind of high impact, low visibility. We saw improved website experience, really kind of high and high. But when we got to things like invest in cybersecurity enhancements, most of the group actually felt, this should be in this sort of green, high impact high, but somebody said it should be low. And so you can decide, okay, I agree with the group and I'm going to move that there. But for the last one around launching customer success, we actually had kind of a split here, right? So it's a misalignment. And so the idea is to try to use this as a guide to determine, right, which of these things should we be actually prioritizing from an investment dollar perspective. If stuff's not going to be super impactful and it's very low in terms of feasibility, maybe that shouldn't be on the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really like this activity for a couple of reasons. I like that you're asking everyone to think about each items around a couple specific parameters, so impact and feasibility, and giving everyone a say on all the items, like a chance to provide their perspective there.
That's
But
right.
what I really love is the ability to focus down on those things where you're not already aligned. So, hey, if 100% of us agree that it belongs in the top right,
Good to
let's
go. Yeah.
top right. But those things where, okay, there's a majority, but maybe we should talk about it more, or there's no clear majority, that's really where you can focus the time so you don't waste time with lots of people talking about the same thing and saying things that everyone agrees in and preaching to the
Sure.
choir. You can really get down to, okay, we got some different opinions here. Let's unpack this and let's talk about why.
Yeah. You caught that. So while we're in the business of collaborative decision-making and driving fast alignment, the best way to get fast alignment is to narrow in on misalignment as quickly as possible and have those conversations and surface that dialogue and move past that. So it's not like the silent minority that's holding on to this grudge that you're right and I'm wrong,
Absolutely.
So Beth, when we had this sort of tiebreaker, I just sort of moved us past and said, okay, we're going to settle that one maybe another time, but that's not to say you have to categorize everything. It's more of a guide to get to this final activity, which is when we're going to categorize everything based upon, is it small, meaning we can do it with existing resources, it fits within current budgets, maybe it's stuff we've done before, or it's very incremental to what we've done, all the way to sort of this large thing, which is a high budget requirement. It's major funding. It's kind of a one-off potential thing, but it's beyond standard allocation. And so once again, everybody goes through the list of things that we've then prioritized from the now two evaluation activities, right? And we're going to pick, does this sort of fit small, medium, or large? And to your point, we're going to narrow down on where the disagreements are. And so here you can see our initial categorization had two, right, that were still considered uncategorized. And that's because, for cybersecurity, once again, some people thought it was medium, some people thought it was large. So this one's kind of a debated topic in this business. But nonetheless, once we kind of move past that, we can start to see if we can plot them all in here. And that one's great because we just were working on that. So that's a very, very short way to think about budget planning. Just to kind of recap, we had people dream up ideas in a pre-work session. We reviewed those. We went through 2 rounds of narrowing those down, both based on preference and then both based on impact and feasibility. And then finally, we laid out what can we afford, right? We can probably only do one of column, large over here. Maybe we can do everything in small. And you can take this information and export it into a CSV and a takeaway to do your kind of dollar assessment work. But Beth, any final words on budget planning on Meahana?
No, I love this. Last question for you, Adam. I
Yeah,
noticed a couple different ways of categorizing things. So one, you really use that 2x2 matrix where you had 2 dimensions, and another
sure.
where you just actually put it into different columns. What helps you decide which one makes sense for the activity to choose?
It's interesting. I think for categorizing items in columns, it makes sense like this one, small, medium, and large. These don't have any relation to each other. Versus the other one, I actually wanted the matrix. I wanted the 2x2, the quadrant itself. So there was math that was involved in that one. We actually have on the platform, as you know, we have a matrix ranking activity where people can rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, and they'll automatically plot them. The challenge there is that happens with that is because everybody's rating it at the same time. Sometimes all the ratings show up in the middle, and you actually had a lot of misalignment. So it's easier to force people to have to pick one of the quadrants to go into.
Yeah, super interesting. I do like that. In some cases, you are going to want to get average of ratings. In other cases, you are going to want to really push on people. All right, you got to choose one.
That's right.
What is it going to be?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Good. I feel like we're ready to go out and make some smart decisions and spend our money.
Well, if at the very least, we'll have some more fun and engagement at the way we drive some of these intentional discourses in the budget planning process. So that's the hope. Well, thanks, Beth, for joining me
Ideally,
on
people
Design
walk
Challenge.
away. Awesome.
Sure. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.